CDNJS.
Did I get a drum roll?
A drum roll would be great. Hey, CDNJS! They are a service that basically speeds up your website. I'm going to let them do the talking. Ryan and Thomas, it's so nice to see you guys.
Thanks very much, Robbie.
Nice to have you here. First of all, I want to let's introduce yourselves. I see Ryan at the top there. We are on. This is kind of interesting because today is the first day, kind of that the group conversations for Skype came out for free. It's now available. So this is the kind of the first experiment to get this thing going. So we've got both of you guys here.
Guinea pigging it a little bit.
Yeah, kind of guinea pigging a little bit. But it looks like it's working out. So CDNJS, what is it?
Great question. Thomas or me? What do you reckon?
Take it away.
All right, so CDNJS. So a little bit of background. Thomas and I have been building websites together for almost a decade now. And right out of college, we did a startup. So probably one of the most valuable things to come out of that startup, which is now defunct, is CDNJS. So way back in the distant history of internet time, so early 2011, the only public sort of free CDN around at that time was Google Ajax libraries. And what they did was they hosted jQuery and Dojo and Moo tools, and that's awesome. But we sort of were using some smaller libraries at that time, for example, Underscore and Backbone, and we're like, all right, guys, would you mind adding Underscore and Backbone to your CDN? And in typical Google fashion, there was absolutely no response. So it was about that time that actually Amazon CloudFront had just been released. So it was sort of possible for a small independent developer to access this massive CDN. Mm-hmm. So we thought, hey, why don't we make our own? So I'm sure a whole bunch of other people had that problem, and here we are today.
So interestingly enough, though, to create our own CDN, let's say I, as a user, wanted to put my assets for my website into, say, you use CloudFront as the example. Well, there are other advantages to something like CDNJS. I'm going to just kind of hit on caching. Maybe we should talk a little bit about that. Before I move on, though, I already know that there's a lot of viewers that are probably going, what? Sorry, what? What does all this mean? Basically, your website is, it's code, and we use different libraries to build websites. A popular one that Ryan mentioned there is called jQuery, and that gives us access to certain functionality that allows us, the website developers, to do some pretty cool things, so that your browsing experience is enhanced. So it could be anything as simple as a drop-down menu to full user interface and the user experience itself. So hosting those things on my own server is going to pull resources from my own server, and if there are 100 people looking at my website all at once, it's pulling all this
down
data.
a little bit.
Yeah, and it slows things down, and your user, the response time is going to be slowed down. So I can put them on S3 and CloudFront, but what's the advantage? I mean, I touched on caching a little bit. Thinking about CDNJS, how do you do things differently?
Okay, Thomas, how about get that one?
All right, so a content distribution network. Essentially, our Cloudflare network has, I think it's about 24 different worldwide locations. Is that right, Brian?
Yeah, 26 now, in fact, I think.
Yeah. So essentially, when you serve your files, if you had an American server, you would put that file on your American server, and anyone from requesting it from around the world would have to bring it down from your American server. The best part about a content distribution network is that before anyone pulls it down, it is copied to those 24 different servers. And when someone requests a file from your website, it will actually figure out the closest location to pull those files from.
Right.
So there's an edge location, it's called, in Australia. And we can actually serve your website from Australia instead of serving it from the United States for Australians, which saves a lot of latency and a lot of time for users.
Sure. So to take that and kind of summarize that for the viewers, if Jod is watching in the Netherlands, for example, and he goes to our website, he's going to actually be receiving the assets through CDNJS from a server that's more local to him than, say, our US servers.
That's absolutely right. And in fact, there's another benefit to using a CDN as well. So browsers these days are really smart. And what they're going to do is they're going to look at all of the files they have to grab off the server. And they'll inspect the URL. And if the URL is something that they've seen before, what they'll actually do is they'll have it in their cache, which is just basically a dump of all of the assets that they've seen on other files.
Right.
And what they can do is, if they've seen that URL before, they can pull that asset, or say jQuery, out of their local browser cache without even having to go to the server. So, for example, if our friend in the Netherlands has been to any other website that uses CDNJS and loads jQuery, his browser will already have that, and so he won't even incur the round trip time to our edge location.
So we're basically looking at instantaneous response time. Say if I go to Krista's website and she's using jQuery, using the CDNJS kind of hosting platform, and then goes to category5.tv and it loads it from my computer. So it's instantaneous. It doesn't even have to get it through the web. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah, there's a bit more complexity to it these days. Chrome does some intelligent guesses as to whether it wants to reload content or not, and Firefox as well. But that's the general idea. Absolutely.
Very cool. So the fact is there are other CDNs out there. I think about, in particular, you mentioned Google, and a lot of people use Google for jQuery, and that's the example that we're using. So what sets CDNJS apart from, say, Google or Microsoft CDN services?
So I'll go off Ryan's introduction of CDNJS. When we first introduced it, we actually set up a user voice account, which back in the day was a system for people to vote for which libraries they think should be on a CDN. And we had this idea that we would try to make it as very collaborative and like a community movement as opposed to just a company. And so we had this huge community movement, and we had a lot of loyal adopters in the first year. And over the last 4 years, I think we have about 800 contributors a year now.
Sorry, 800?
This many contributors. What was that, sir?
Sorry, it was 800. I didn't catch that part there. It was 800 what?
Contributors. Open source contributors. So on GitHub.
Contributors to the project?
Yeah.
Really? So you guys aren't it?
No. It's a community effort, and
oh, very cool.
There's probably a lot more than 800 people too. That's just what GitHub seems to report more or service. And with that many people, we're actually able to maintain a good collection of libraries. So Google actually only has about 8 libraries, 10 libraries, I believe, maybe a bit more now. But CDNJS boasts about 800 plus libraries, and we keep them up to date using the community.
You broke up a little bit there, Thomas. Did you say that you have more than 800 libraries versus Google's 8 or 10?
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah. And we have a decent response time for keeping the versions up to date. We try very hard to make sure it's in 24 hours, but sometimes we fall behind. It can take up to a week for us to update a version sometimes.
Sure.
But for the major libraries, we tend to keep them up to date. And we have, not only do we have part-time contributors who come in and send a pull request on GitHub occasionally, but we have a few main curators, we call them essentially, such as Pete Cooper, who I'll give a shout out to for the last year. Pete Cooper, who's just another moderator of ours who essentially has been updating everything daily.
Wow.
And making sure everything is up to date. And another one is Drew Failing from Australia.
And how many? Now we know. Okay, so about 800 people are contributing to the project. We've got several hundred libraries, and I can attest to that. A recent experience that I had was I'm learning to use Bootstrap, and I know that's kind of silly because it's a little, we're on Bootstrap 3, but I'm old school, so I like to make my own stuff, and so this is a way for me to save some time as I'm programming a website. So what did I do is I went onto CDNJS, and I was astounded at how many of the assets that I required, be it the libraries, be it the CSS, all minified, mind you, and all of these supplemental plugins for Bootstrap, and Bootstrap just being an example, there is a ton of available stuff on CDNJS for me to use to increase the productivity, of me as a web designer, but also produce the speed or increase the speed of my website through just the delivery mechanism that's there. So with that many libraries and understanding that you've got so many people that are maintaining these, how do you keep on top of, say, new versions coming out, or perhaps with there was an exploit recently with one of the video players on HTML5. How do you address those kinds of things, like say a cross browser scripting bug or whatever, cross XML or something like that?
Yeah. Well, I'll let Ryan. Do you want to cover the video and I'll cover the auto update?
Yeah, so to give you a bit of a background, so the way we started this was we wanted it to be a completely open and transparent process. And so we're hosting it on a platform called GitHub. So absolutely everything you do, you can see a complete history of the project from its very inception right till now. So what we've done up until now is we've asked our users to sort of tell us when they want something to be updated. So either we've gone ourselves and manually pulled a new version, or we've waited for, say, Robbie to come along and say, hey guys, there's a new version of jQuery. Here's the files I'd like you to add. What we do is we verify them against the official source, make sure that there's no malicious content. For example, Robbie's not trying to hack a whole bunch of websites on CDNJS.
Sure.
And then we'll merge that into the main project. So that worked fine for quite a few years. But now, as we've said, we've sort of had 800 contributors in, say, the past year, which is a huge number of pull requests. That's many more than one pull request every day. So what we've done now is we've said, all right, how can we automate what we're doing? How can we take the manual process out of this and turn it into tooling? And that's what Thomas has got to talk about.
He defers to you, Thomas.
Looks like
I'm not sure if your mic has stopped working there, Thomas.
I muted my mic.
Oh, there we go. Oh, he muted it.
Yeah. So we were spending a lot of time, even with good people coming on to help us out the project for like a lot of the time. It still took a lot of our time. So recently we've been experimenting with ideas on how we can actually get libraries up to date on CDNJS all the time. So essentially real-time versions. And it's quite easy to do, but it's a little bit problematic. So our first attempt at it is that there's the NPM registry, which is a Node.js sort of package manager. And the NPM registry is the go-to place for downloading assets. Ruby gems is the equivalent, or even you could say like Debian packages.
Sure, yeah.
And the thing is, a lot of the projects on CDNJS are also uploaded to NPM, and NPM revolves around authors of those libraries pushing their source code to it.
Yep.
So essentially what we then get is a big repository with of valid packages uploaded by the proper authors, which we can actually pull down and trust the source.
Okay.
So we've been enabling quite a few libraries on CDNJS to just pull down from that source and check every 15 minutes, essentially, to see if there's any version. If there is, bring it down, extract it, and upload it to the CDN. So we're up to 100 libraries now that have this updated.
It sounds really similar to, say, a Linux repository kind of methodology. Is that kind of the way that you're distributing and keeping things up to date?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very similar.
Very cool. So obviously very well thought out as far as the how CDNJS works. Very technical, and so a lot of the information, some of us understand, some of us don't. Thomas, for example, I heard something about pushing a branch, something along those lines. Anyways, inside thing. He just got it. Just got it. Okay, it's all good. It's all good. So. My question, so I'm an end user, okay? So I'm not the guy who's pushing out on GitHub new packages and things like that to keep you up to date. I'm Robbie Ferguson, who's programming a website, and I need jQuery. I'm used to downloading it to my server and putting it into the JS folder and linking to it. Now I hear about CDNJS. I hear that it's so much better. You guys have grown exponentially. I want you to talk about briefly about how many people are using your service, but what kinds of fears do I have now if I'm hosting with you? What happens, what's the reliability? Do I have to worry about my site breaking because I'm hosting assets with somebody else and I'm doing so for free? How is this possible?
Right. So first of all, in regards to the reliability, so the people or the company handling our backend infrastructure is Cloudflare. So essentially, I mean, they host a huge number of very high-profile websites.
Sure do.
They've been involved in a number of DDoS mitigation attacks, so their network capacity is phenomenal. And so what they're doing is they're providing the sort of the edge locations for us. In regards to growth, the growth has been phenomenal as well. So when we started back in 2011, we got 6,000 hits in the first month. We're like, whoa, this is crazy.
Yeah.
So at this level of growth, we might have 100,000 hits by the end of the year. So those numbers have sort of been and gone and very quickly, and we're up to billions of hits a month right now, used on over 150,000 websites and a bunch of really big name websites. For example, Xbox.com is one of the users. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I kind of lost track of the other questions, which were there.
So some other sites too using CDNJS. I think McDonald's was even using CDNJS at one point. CartoonNetwork.com is using CDNJS, and PC Advisor in the UK is using CDNJS.
Yeah.
So a fair amount of large websites use CDNJS. Also, we have a trusted reputation at this point. For the last 4 years, we essentially haven't had any. Up until 2 weeks ago, we haven't had any security concerns at all. And we haven't had any major downtimes. We haven't supplied 100% uptime, but I don't know who has. So I'm not about that. Yeah, and as Ryan said, Cloudflare's network is just phenomenal.
Very cool. Yeah, we use Cloudflare here at the show as well, and it's been a fantastic way for us to cut down. When DDoSes come, it's a really great way for us to be able to thwart the attacks. So we have a lot of faith in Cloudflare here as well. My other question there for you, Ryan and Thomas, from CDNJS.com. How is it that you provide the service for free, and how does that work as a business model for you guys?
Right. So basically, CDNJS has always been completely free and in fact open source. The way we originally did it was we hosted it on Amazon CloudFront, and we did some projections, and we said, all right, if we get 10 million hits a month, that'll be about $30 a month. We can pay that out of our own pocket. But we very rapidly blew through that sort of usage. So at a later stage, one of the early JavaScript engineers at Cloudflare sort of noticed us, and eventually Cloudflare approached us sort of about a partnership about helping us deal with bandwidth usage. So what they've done is they said, hey guys, we sort of have massive network capacity, and we have enough spare capacity to host you guys for about as long as you want to work with us. So that's been the situation for about a year or two now, at least.
Okay.
Yep. And also, CDNJS has kind of evolved into two projects at once. One, we offer a CDN via Cloudflare with a partnership with Cloudflare. But also, it's kind of just turned into a package manager, essentially. So it's a big collection of files. And there's no reason why anyone can't actually serve these files, because it's all open source. Google Libraries, if they ever felt like they should have more libraries, they can essentially just upload CDNJS to their CDN and serve it. And the same goes for Amazon or even GitHub. And this has been the case because we actually have problems in China at the moment with Cloudflare. China's Great Wall of China blocks occasionally. So what we've had is there's been Chinese open source developers who have got in contact with content distribution networks in China and actually have, I think it's called CDNJS.cn, and they actually offer the Chinese version of CDNJS.
Yeah.
And we don't have any official endorsement or anything like this or any partnership, but there's no it's completely fine, and people have married CDNJS in their own networks.
That's interesting. Is there documentation about that particular issue? Because I, as a developer who is, developing my own program, my show, Category 5 TV, into mainland China, we run into the same thing as you guys, where the government blocks Western content, and so it becomes a real problem for distribution and getting our product out there. So it's interesting to note that, so CDNJS may have problems in China, but we have a way around it. Is there any documentation available for that kind of thing, or?
Actually, we haven't actually put up any notice. The problem is that it does work in China. So there's three cases. It works in China, it's very slow in China, or it doesn't work at all.
Right.
And we actually haven't had enough reports of it not working at all.
Yep.
And I've had people say it does work in China. So we're a little bit iffy there. I guess we should put up a statement, though, about just issues in general.
Yeah.
And also in regards to using this service in China, it's kind of like in our best interest to trust Cloudflare to negotiate those concerns, because they have a vested interest in ensuring that their millions of websites are accessible in China.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure as professional network operators, they have the right connections to be able to negotiate a deal, if any. Because trying to use sort of like, otherwise it's just a case of trying to stay one step ahead of the Great Firewall of China. Like, all right, they've blocked this service, then this service, then this service.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cat and mouse game.
Yeah, no, and we've absolutely been there, and we do have a fair number of viewers who are watching in China. So let us know what your experience is if you're in mainland China. I know, I receive emails, and a lot of you tend to use proxies and ways around this particular issue. But it would be interesting to note. So, but you guys are doing a great job, and it's a fantastic service. Do you have any particular use cases that are kind of interesting to our viewers? Any particular services that are using your service that, beyond just the scale, but some interesting use of your service? Anything come to mind at all?
Well, there is a Sublime Text plugin, which is super cool. Yeah, so it's basically just a package that you can search CDNJS on, search for whatever library you want, and drop it into your file. And also there's a similar thing for codepen.io. So, yeah, they're great things to check out.
Krista has a web... Sorry, go ahead, Thomas.
Is like, codepen.io is like jsfiddle.net. Just places where, I'm not sure if other viewers have seen it, but you can put HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in this little browser, and it renders it, and then you can share it to anyone you want.
Sure.
And JSFiddle and CodePen both have support for CDNJS, so you can load assets straight from CDNJS. And a lot of developers actually use CDNJS, and myself use it for prototyping. When I'm creating a quick page, if I have to go to the backend website, download the files, put them in the folder, serve the folder, it's a lot slower than if I've just copied the CDNJS URL. So I think a fair portion of our users actually don't use CDNJS in production. We do have 180,000 websites. I think it's up from 150,000 using it. But a lot of people use it for development.
Sure. Yeah, I don't have to host the libraries locally. I don't have to find all the files and accumulate them. And we're going to demonstrate as soon as we're done here, guys. I want to show you at home. Yeah, I'd like to show you CDNJS just so that you can see how easy it is to find the libraries that you're looking for. We use jQuery as the example. Guys, how can we, beyond obviously making mention of CDNJS and how great you guys are, we use the service. So if you found that over the past little while that Category 5, the website has gotten faster and more optimized, CDNJS is a big part of that, moving our libraries off of our own hosting. We used to try to host things on S3, same kind of thing, going through CloudFront and everything. But the cache thing comes into play where you're still loading it from my S3 account every time that you as soon as your cache is done. You're not getting it from a centralized source. So, guys, how can we support CDNJS as a free service? I want to know what can we do to really get you guys some attention.
Well, first and foremost, we always love pull requests. So if you ever have a version that needs to be updated, feel free to come and update it for us.
Yeah, there you go. It's an interesting model that I can say, I really want to see the new version of X application on CDNJS, and I can actually go onto GitHub and I can do that, and that distributes it to the entire infrastructure of CDNJS. That's awesome.
Absolutely. And then you're a contributor to the CDNJS project as well. So open source contribution points.
Very cool. All right, guys. Well, it's cdnjs.com, just as Ryan's footer there says, cdnjs.com. Check them out. We're going to take a quick look, boys. Thank you so much for being on the show. Nice to see you, and keep up the great work.
Thanks very much, Robbie.
Take care.
Later.
Have a good night.
Bye.
This is Category 5 Technology TV. You'll find us online, www.category5.tv. I want to really quickly, Krista, if I may, just show what CDNJS looks like here. We're just going to bring it up
give
into
you
our web browser.
a little preview of everything we were just kind of talking about.
Yeah, cdnjs.com. Check this out. really, really easy to use. I mean, we use jQuery as the example, right? A lot of us use jQuery. It's a fantastic library. I used to use it off of the Google CDN, and then I realized that there just wasn't a whole lot there. As Thomas was saying, there's 8 or 10 different libraries available. So I type in jQuery, and there's my jQuery library. So it automatically defaults to the newest version minified. If I click on it, it will take me to all these different versions of jQuery. So if my program, if my web app or my website already features jQuery, all I have to do to change over to CDNJS is go here and say, okay, well, here's the minified version of 2.1.0, and I just copy that to my clipboard. I go back to my website code, and I replace the local or other hosted copy of jQuery with the CDNJS. And then it's hosted. Yeah, that's it. That's all. And then it's pointing to this fantastic service that, as they were saying, is based on the CDN infrastructure of Cloudflare. So it is going to distribute, if I'm in the United States, I'm going to get it from a server in the United States. If I'm in Canada, I'm going to get it from a server close to Canada. If I'm, wherever you are, you're going to get it from an endpoint that is closer to home. So you're not getting the same kind of slow response times from those libraries. So fantastic work over at CDNJS. Recommend that you check those out and those guys out. And if you have any questions for them, interesting fact is you can go over to cdnjs.com, jump up to community chat, enter your name, say hello, and there's Ryan there. Hey, Ryan. That's all there is to it to getting a hold of these guys. So nice and easy. So cdnjs.com, a drop-in replacement for all of your libraries using JavaScript, CSS, all that kind of stuff. So great stuff.
Category 5 TV is a production of Prodigy Digital Solutions and is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution 2.5 Canada. Thanks for watching.